Hello, my name is Chappie Ferrer. I'm the Executive Director of Military Outreach USA. I am also the founder of Stand By Me Heroes. I'm an NCO, an Iraqi vet, served in the 82nd Airborne and 7th Army. I'm a licensed minister and a chaplain for a few organizations. What we're continuing to go through here is a framework. It's a framework of hope, a framework of recovery for those that are dealing with moral injury, those that are dealing with post-traumatic stress, TBI, military sexual trauma, and other traumas. We're in partnership with our friends at Crosswinds Foundation.org, and the manual that we're using is the Warrior of Hope manual. Again, it is a framework, simple but very effective in how we help our veterans, even our active duty, our first responders, those that are in need of help, that are in need of a friend, that are in need of someone to stand by me. Overcoming obstacles. Now, we may all have varying ideas of overcoming obstacles, but when you come into the civilian sector, there's a lot of commonality that us veterans are able to share with one another. It's not going to be easy. You're coming from, you could be coming from a high-speed, low-drag, quick situation where everything is mission-oriented and you're constantly in training, you're constantly focused, you're going at a very high level, a very high speed to get to where you need to go. However, when you come into the civilian sector, you're going to have to slow down a little bit. Sometimes you're really going to have to slow down. These obstacles that you're facing with, along with those that you're bringing with you, again, those dealing with moral injury, post-traumatic stress, military sexual trauma, and other traumas, we're going to have to work together toward overcoming all obstacles. There is a way, there's a method of doing this that can help you to become successful. So let's talk about these. First, let's talk about change. Nobody likes that word, change. As a project management professional, I don't like the word change, but I understand that in managing my projects, I have to change along with whatever country I may have that project assigned to me at. So change is nothing that anyone likes to hear, but yet change is an absolute requirement if you're to be successful in this life's journey. Every time we run into that sign, detour, what does that mean? You're about to consume more resource than you wanted to. And that resource comes in time. It comes in methodology. You may have to change your processes just because of change. And this is what I want to talk about. So our main idea is to remember, life is going to be messy. It always has been, it always will be. As long as we are human, we are flesh, yeah, there's going to be times when things are going to be a mess. But no matter what the mess is, all things are recoverable. All things. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk a little bit about what we've learned in the military. What happens when we're given that mission? All the training, all the equipment, we're all prepared, we're ready to go. But in the process of planning for that mission, do we not have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D in case? We're always looking at a variety of different scenarios because we just never know what may happen in real life, in the real world. This is true in the civilian world as well. So there is that mental idea of change and its impacts, but change we can overcome. We just need to do better at planning. Again, part of the solution is mind, body, and soul. Never be one or two dimensional. That only creates more problems, and at the end of the day, you will overcome very little. So let's talk about overcoming obstacles. We're going to have to do this. When you come into the civilian world, it's like driving in a Mustang 351 Cleveland, 4 on the floor, high speed, right? it's like going from that vehicle to a Volkswagen. You're not going to go very fast. As a matter of fact, you have to go at the same speed as your peers in the civilian sector. That's most difficult to do. And it does take temperance on our part. But through best practices, through the help of our partners, we can talk about this. We can talk about best practices. But what I want us to understand is for everything that we do, there is a beginning, there is an end. In project management, we say for a project, there is a start and there's always a finish. During this process, when you're talking with your partners, when you're talking about obstacles, you share best practices. And it's always best to keep a journal, a private journal, to let yourself know of the obstacles that you face, how eventually they were overcome. And it helps you a year later down the road to look back and say, I can measure. I see when I ran into this. I see the efforts that were put into overcoming this. Always measure yourself. Because if you don't measure, how are you going to know that you're moving forward? And by partnering with others, again, never have on your team yes folk. If they're always going to answer yes, what value have they? But always have someone that is able to say to you, that's not the right path. Someone that's going to challenge your assumptions. And that will also help you to keep on that correct path, that you may measure your gains as you move forward. And isn't that what life is all about? Moving forward, measuring your gains, doing better and better. So expect obstacles. We expect them in life. We expect them when we were in mission training. We always train for that. Expect obstacles. Sometimes you're just going to have to push yourself. There are times when we may be able to, in our spirit, get lazy and just call in a day. I'm not doing anything today. I'll just sit and do nothing. In this, yes, sometimes we do need a break. But you always, just as we did in the military, you need to push yourself, and your team needs to help push you as well. Stick to the plan. What we're talking about is an overall plan. It could be a high-level plan to begin with, and then you could start filling more detail as you continue your journey forward. But stick with the plan. Those that are part of your core team, they'll help you stick to the plan. But you have to be able to listen. Most important. There will be adjustments. There will be constant adjustments, right? This is part of life. This is also part of your journey. And remember, the most important thing is, this is not a sprint. Now, for those of us who've been on track teams, we know that if you run the 440, after a while, you're going to get very exhausted. But running a 440 is nothing like running 10 miles or more. This is a marathon. This is your life's journey. And you have friends and family to take along that journey. So remember, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And I'm going to ask that you remember to use your warrior skills. All that talent, all those skills, all those instincts that you've learned in the military will be very helpful in your journey. Also, I want you to avoid negative thoughts, negative individuals. That will only bring you down. As much as I've loved many, those that were too negative about too many things, well, I reduced my time with them because I was focused on family, recovery, and moving forward. So keep this in mind. Involve a mentor or a chaplain. Mind, body, and soul. A mentor, a chaplain will help you not only focus on mind and body, but again, if you're only two-dimensional, you will not succeed. All those that have gone through this simple program that we're working with even today, their success has been based on them opening themselves up to having that spiritual aspect of their life through devotionals at home. And it has benefited them greatly. So think of these individuals. Think of a Foxhole Soul Counselor as part of that mentoring team. Develop a daily routine. Now, many of us will say, I don't like structure. Well, that's never been true. Because in the military, your whole life during that time has always been structured. So you can still use a structure, and it's always best to use a structure as you proceed. For example, wake up a little early. Spend a little bit of time with a devotional. Don't give up the physical training that you've had in the past. It's okay to go to the gym. It's okay to get together with people and ride your bike. Go running together. Be involved in a few sports activities. Also, I want to talk to you about that faith aspect. Again, when we speak of faith, we're not talking about religion. But I reemphasize and will always reemphasize the need for mind, body, and soul. And if you really want to recover, part of that recovery must include volunteering, giving yourself. Everyone that I've ever talked to throughout my years that have always volunteered and given away has always received 10 times more to fill their heart and their soul by giving. So this has to be part of your recovery process. This has to be part of that process to overcome. When we're talking about overcoming obstacles, there are those obstacles that are common to all of us, right? If you don't have a plan, what's the commonality? Well, you're simply going to fail. As I teach project management, I let my class know, if you've not planned, you've already failed. And many do not plan and then wonder why they continue to fail. Also, don't try to do too much. You're assimilating into civilian life. Civilian life is slow. It is not at the speed that you've been used to. So please keep that in mind. It's an obstacle, and learning patience and temperance, for me, was never easy. But I thank God that I had mentors, that I had individuals who understood me as a veteran and helped me along that journey. Don't stop short on your objective. If you've already defined your objective, if your team, your mentors help you with your plan and you agree to your plan, stick to it. Don't turn to the left, don't turn to the right, continue forward. If you're falling short, it's okay. It's called change. What do I have to do different to still meet this objective? All objectives can be met. There's physical limitations. Now, I am not a Michael Jordan, obviously the greatest basketball player of all time, but I can't beat him at basketball no matter how young I am. I have limitations. But there are certain things that you and I could do that others cannot do. Know this, we all have gifts. It's just a question of finding out what gifts you have and how you could use them. That becomes very part of the mentoring process as well. And probably the biggest obstacle you're facing, letting go of the past. That is most difficult. But again, with the help of a core team, a Foxhole Soul Counselor, a chaplain, a mentor, you can overcome that very enormous obstacle. Related to the effects of post-traumatic stress, well, let's look at that. I've spoken about reintegrating into civilian life. You'll think, well, I'm motivated, I've accomplished these great things. Yes, you have. But the civilian sector, they have no clue what you've accomplished. They wouldn't understand your military acronyms, our terms. They just wouldn't understand it. So you, in essence, have to take all your instincts, all that you've learned, and you have to learn to translate them into civilian language that they can understand. So you become a teacher as well. Isolation, withdrawal. It's clear when someone isolates and withdraws. You don't need to do that. This is why you have a core team. Let them challenge you. Let them help you. But remember, assimilation takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And there's the last and the biggest item of all. The mission for Stand By Me Heroes is to reduce this number of 22 plus suicides per day in the veteran community. That is an enormous number. And that number is more plus than it is the number itself. This is the whole purpose. And that number continues consistently, constantly. We can impact that number. We can avoid that situation in our lives. We just need to surround ourselves with the right people that will help us. Because along the journey, as we did in our military career, we fall short in our training. So we focus on the weaknesses, strengthen them, and then the team becomes that much greater and that much more capable. For those of you who've never heard Admiral McGavin speak, I would recommend, as I do, at least looking at this video once a week. That's what I do at least. And take a look at this video. It's simplistic, and it is something that we need to hear. At least I would say on a daily basis, but I do hear it quite often. Please consider going on YouTube and pull up the YouTube where he speaks at the University of Texas. And everyone is familiar, or should be familiar, when he speaks about if you want change, start by making your bed. Please take this into consideration. And if you do run into those days that you're not doing so well, I think this video will definitely get you going. I want to talk real briefly about World War II Sergeant Loris Lee, a Marine, who fought in Iwo Jima. And I want to read these bullet statements to you, and I want you to consider these. When I hit the beach, my statement was, Lord, I'm in your hands. Please see me through this. I had no control over my fate. I can still smell the stench of those dead bodies today. I battle it a lot in the evening. Many of us understand this quite clearly, and we continue to struggle with this. But like everything else, it can become manageable. I want to quote my pops. He served in W2, in Korea, in Vietnam. Sergeant Miguel Berlinger, 65th Infantry from Puerto Rico. If you know anything about the 65th Infantry, they were jungle fighters. General MacArthur picked them particularly for D-Day because they had a special mission within the forests as they entered the country. I had a conversation with him when I came back from Iraq. I was struggling. I didn't have things well put together, and of course, my wife understood what was going on. My children were just confused that this old man just was going off the rails. So when I came home, I got to talk to him. And I asked him, what do I do now? Well, in speaking to me, he was very concise. And if you look at the last bullet statement, he told me the key was faith, family, and friends. Through that combination, he was able to overcome. Because in the 65th Infantry, I asked him, why continue through 3 wars? 1 is more than enough. But as he stated, on the island, everyone knew everyone, and you don't leave family. Thus, why he continued into Korea and he continued into Vietnam. But the key elements was all about faith, was about family and friends. And many of his friends moved, they all moved into the same community in Ohio together so that they could help one another and they could also help family. So his advice was, son, you've already made it through. You're alive. Now begin your focus. And he was very simplistic in what he had to say. He told me, I will fall on my face at times. But what you do is you get back on your knees, you look up to God, ask for strength, then stand too, and move forward. And I have followed that advice. I have fallen on my face quite a few times. But the simplicity of what he said, the simplicity of the help that I had through my mentors, through other Foxhole Soul counselors, even to this day, helps me to continue to manage and move forward. Again, I'd like for you to consider, if you've gone through this, if you're experienced in this, if you are an overcomer, consider becoming a Foxhole Soul counselor. Consider joining us across the country so that we may help others who continue to quietly struggle, not only within our veteran community, but also our first responders who face greater problems and situations that they've ever faced in the history of our country. We look to help others, but we do this through small teams, through our Foxhole Soul Counselor teams. And this way we know that we've already impacted many lives. And if it's as simple as what we do and effective, it could bless others. It could help others. I thank you for your time.